Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Vicky Jelly and I'm the Mayor of Warrnambool City Council, and I will be chairing tonight's council meeting. I would like to formally welcome everyone watching this council meeting by live stream and those who have come to join us tonight in the rooms. This council meeting will be live streamed to allow for public viewing and transparency. If any technical problems interrupt the live stream during this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until the issues are rectified. This scheduled council meeting will be conducted in accordance with the council's governance rules, and any interruptions to the meeting or actions not in line with behaviour expectations will be dealt with in accordance with these rules. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the opening prayer and acknowledgement of the traditional owners. Almighty God, grant to this council wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose for the good governance of this city. Amen. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we stand and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. Thank you. Any apologies for this evening? Doesn't seem to be. Thank you. I'm there. Confirmation of minutes. Councillors, at item 3 on the agenda, we have a recommendation before us to confirm the minutes of the scheduled meeting of council held on the 1st of August 2022. Are there any questions before I seek a motion for this? Thank you. Do I have a mover? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blaine. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 4, conflicts of interest. If a councillor has a conflict of interest, they must declare it now and do so again just prior to the item being discussed. A councillor who has declared a conflict of interest must leave the meeting and remain outside the room while the matter is being considered or any vote taken. Once the matter is resolved, the councillor will return to the meeting. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest tonight?
Mayor, I'd like to declare an interest in item 12.3, Chief Executive Officer's Employment Matters Advisory Committee minutes, as that matter relates directly to my employment. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, mayoral presentation. Just thought I'd highlight tonight the wonderful events that we have not only on the 26th of January to welcome our newest citizens into Australia, but the Australian Citizenship ceremonies that occur during the year. Some people might be aware they happen on a regular basis, depending on how many people we have wanting to become Australian citizens. But and unless perhaps you've got someone you know that is becoming a citizen, you might not understand that they're happening. Warrnambool City Council so far this year has held 4 ceremonies, and there have been 99 people received their citizenship, which is quite a few people. There may have been a hold-up, I suppose, with COVID over the last few years, but that's a significant amount of people in the last 9 months that have come forward. They become new citizens, have either resided in Australia for quite a few years or have been here for a year or a little bit longer, and they come from all walks of life and all over the world. Some of the countries they come from are Afghanistan, China, Brazil, France, India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Ukraine, New Zealand. And they bring skills, experience and their culture, which enhances our multicultural breadth of Australia and who we are. It's quite a detailed application to become an Australian citizen, and often it takes up to about 12 months to complete, which is a fair while, and there's quite a lot of criteria they must meet before they are allowed to do so. All applications are coordinated through the Federal Government's Department of Home Affairs. So the ceremonies we hold here, usually in this room, are well attended and very excited by their families. So just something that we perhaps don't recognise enough, which is great for our city to have some new citizens. Thank you. Agenda item 6, public question time. Are there any public questions this evening, Mr Schneider?
Nil received, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, we are now moving to the officers' report section of the agenda. I would like to remind you of the speaking times allocated for each item during the meeting as outlined in our governance rules. The mover of a motion may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes to open the debate and then a further 2 minutes later on to exercise the right of reply and close the debate. Any councillor, including the seconder, may speak for or against a motion for no more than 3 minutes. I would ask you to respect the timelines, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
Sorry.
Are you sure there were no public questions?
Mayor, we haven't received any that have been listed through the portal. We did receive a letter that was a question on Friday that has been responded to today, but hasn't qualified as a question for the council meeting.
Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, could I have a reason for why it wasn't responded here today or this evening?
The CEO just explained that. If you
That's right.
repeat that, Mr Schneider.
So it didn't, Mayor, it didn't come through our questions portal for the council meeting and wasn't completed on the form. So I didn't class it as being a question for the council meeting. It didn't refer to an item on the meeting. So I've responded to it by email to Mr Dukas today. So there is a response to that question that you will have in your emails, Mr Dukas.
Thank you. We'll now go to agenda item 7 for the reports. 7.1, amendment to governance rules, conduct of virtual council meetings, agenda page number 6, Directorate Department Executive Services. This report provides information on the proposed amendments to the governance rules for the conduct of virtual council meetings and delegated committee meetings. Any questions on this before we go ahead, councillors? Thank you. Do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move that council provide public notice of the proposed amendment to the governance rules and approve the draft governance rules being placed on public exhibition.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Jelly. This mainly allows council to undertake virtual meetings, and whether they are totally virtual via Zoom, as we've seemed to have become accustomed to in the COVID times, or hybrid models where certain councils, if they can't make it, will have the ability to be able to Zoom in on all meetings, which is really good because it means that if a councillor is away, they will actually have the chance to be able to still vote and exercise their right as an elected member, which is really exciting. The other thing I'd like to point out is after COVID, it can be difficult to chair a hybrid meeting, especially if the chair is attending the meeting virtually. So some of the other changes allow the meeting to be chaired by a member who is physically present, which I think is important. The changes proposed do reflect the changes that we've all had to work with over the past few years. So it's going out for consultation, so please take the time to let council know what you think. And also, just one other thing, I'd just like to mention, I'd still hope that if there is any want or need when this goes out for exhibition, whether members of the public could still speak on items like they do at other council meetings. I do wonder if that's something that the Warrnambool community actually wants to be able to do. It is something that we can look at as this goes out for consultation again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, would you like to speak?
Yes, Mayor Shelley. This is a very important aspect of the current 21st century. COVID's made us make it a necessary change to the way councils operate. It's very important that councils are able to still function in a purely democratic and open and transparent way, and the open acceptance of the methods of technology to make sure that the meetings are conveyed in a clear and comprehensible way is very important, as my colleague Councillor Blaine has mentioned, it is an exciting change, but it's a very necessary one. There are times when we've found that people couldn't attend through illness. After the pandemic, it just makes perfect sense that we're able to still maintain our business and do it in a way that folks are able to watch. I think it's just common sense that we do it. And
Thanks.
again, like Councillor Blaine has mentioned, I would urge anyone that wants to have an opinion on this, make their opinion known by placing this on public exhibition. Gives people the opportunity to make sure that their opinion is known to us.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Any other councillor like to speak to this? Councillor Paspaliaris?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Ziegler and Councillor Blaine because it is the new reality for us that council meetings and other committee meetings within council need to be accounted for, either virtually or composite manner. I think that the council's governance rules require an update, and this update's been legislated, so we do have to abide by the Local Government Act. I also think that the amendments, as others have mentioned, it does provide opportunity for a councillor who's unable to attend a meeting in person, but who still wishes to be part of the meeting via electronic means. So there's really no excuse, or not much excuse anymore. So I do support the governance rules amendments going out for public comment with proposed adoption next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Thank you. There being no further speakers, Councillor Blaine, would you like to close the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, agenda item 7.2, financial statements, performance statement 2021-2022, agenda page number 9, Directorate Corporate Strategies. The purpose of this report is to present the 2021-22 performance statement and financial statements to Council for in-principle approval as recommended by Council's Audit and Risk Committee and in accordance with Section 99 of the Local Government Act 2020. It further seeks to nominate 2 councillors who have the authority to sign the annual accounts and performance statement on behalf of Council once final sign-off has been received from the Victoria Auditor General's Office, VAGO. This authorisation will enable Council to meet its statutory obligations for the presentation of its annual statements as part of the annual report to an open council meeting by the 31st of October 2022. The annual report, which includes the financial and performance statements, will return to Council for consideration at a future council meeting. Also provided with this report for Council's information is the draft report of operations which accompanies the financial statements and the annual performance statement. Any questions on this before we go ahead? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
If I can find it, sorry. I move to proceed with the officer's recommendations, numbered 1 to 5.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Blaine? Thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. As the Audit and Risk Committee has given in principle approval of the statements, Council also are required to give the same approval, so the statements can go to the Auditor General for sign-off. Basically, the reports set out the financial performance, position and cash flows of Council for the 21-22 financial year. Part of the financial statements include comments around the impact of COVID, which appears to have had a bit of an ebb and flow effect. There were COVID-related grants of almost $880,000 across some directorates, which boosted revenue, while some revenue decreased at council-owned facilities that obviously had to be closed for periods of time or had reduced opening hours. This was counteracted at times with a reduced staff being required. Some material variations within the financial statement speak to major projects and the timing of those projects with regards to grants being carried over and grants being budgeted for but not being received within the 21-22 financial year. Other variations relate to unknown non-monetary assets that are received by council depending on the level of, say, subdivision activity. This value is obviously difficult to accurately predict when the original budget was adopted. I think a disappointing aspect of the financial statements report is that council was unable to complete all of its footpath renewal program due to lack of contractor availability and a backlog of footpath projects from the prior year. This is also reflected in the performance statement around some capital projects scheduled for 21-22 that were not completed and rolled over into 22-23. These things happen, and it's happening across the board in a lot of industries. An interesting and pleasing aspect of the statement shows total grants received from both state and Commonwealth total more than $22.5 million to help fund the delivery of council services. I found it just an interesting aspect in its management of uncertainties. In particular instances, council also acts as a guarantor for bank loans provided to clubs and community groups. But this is only recognised as a liability if the lender has exercised their right to call on the guarantee, and this has not impacted council in the 21-22 year. In its own right, council manages interest rate risk by adopting an investment policy which includes diversification and monitoring returns. The 21-22 year sees no significant change in council's exposure in this area, and in addition, interest rates movements have not been sufficiently significant to have an impact on council's year-end result, I'd say, unlike the rest of us. But I'm comfortable to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blaine, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It is important that we have the financials audited by an independent body, Victoria's Auditor General. And as Councillor Paspaliaris has said, I think she's right. The money that's there is money that has been held over from projects and services this year, just due to lack of contractors and a lack of availability through COVID. It is something that I hope that in the coming year that we can we'll work extra hard and make sure that we deliver things like the footpath program for our city, and all the other services will go back into full swing. I think the operations report actually shows some really interesting trends. The animal shelter costs moved from around $17.32 an animal to $19.34, and hopefully that's something that can be brought back as progress as we progress towards a new facility and a new operation model. But it is positive to see that requests when it comes to pets are actioned within 1 day, and that no persecutions have been taken over the past year. It's a real credit to Warrnambool and their actions and responsibility, and everyone's actions and responsibility in looking after their animals. Transparency, I think, was another really positive move, with council only making 1.88% of its decisions at closed meetings, which is a big change from past years, and I think that's something we can all agree is a move towards better transparency for our council within the community. One thing that I did find concerning, though, especially for our growing city, was planning applications. The time it takes for planning applications to be assessed has increased from 28 days to 53 days on average. We need to be making sure this is properly resourced, and we need to be doing more work. With Warrnambool being a growing city, housing supply is going to be critical for workers, housing, social housing. We need to be able to get more housing stock in our growing city, not only for our industries, but just so people can live. So I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Anyone else like to speak to it? Good. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to close the debate? Thank you. Okay, we'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 7.3, Warrnambool Planning Scheme Amendment, C205 WARR, North Warrnambool Flood Controls. Agenda page number 11, Directorate City Growth. This report considers the report of the independent panel received for amendment C205 WARR, North Warrnambool Flood Controls to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme. This report recommends that the Council adopt the amendment in the manner recommended by the panel and submit the adopted amendment to the Minister for Planning for approval. Any questions in relation to this? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. I'd like to move that the motion to the Warrnambool Planning Scheme of the North Warrnambool Flood Controls as per the officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. Council should adopt the independent panel's recommendations in relation to the amendment C205 with section 27.1, 29.1 and 31.1 and notify all submitters to an amendment of the Council's decision. This amendment represents a significant correction to the flood controls as vast changes have occurred to the North Warrnambool area in recent decades, and there is land that will be covered by a flood control for the first time in this area. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott, like to speak?
Yes, thank you. This is a very important piece of work. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of property affected. Hopefully, it's all a positive effect. It has been a piece of work that's been going on for quite a while, so I'm happy to accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Ziegler.
I was initially a little bit wary of this particular amendment because I wasn't convinced that the modelling used was actually all that it should be. Not convinced that historical evidence, anecdotal evidence, was taken into account and given the weight that it should have been, perhaps. I was pleased to see that the number of people who had less than 100 millimetres of water over their floor had reduced to 14 from 146 with the recent floods that we had, and I still believe that those 14 would have been terribly distressed. However, while it's a move in the right direction, I think that there's more work to be done in terms of ameliorating the effects of possibly increasing episodes of flooding that might happen. And I'm not wholly convinced, that the Russells Creek floods could be called minor for those people who were actually inundated. I'm basically just saying I have an uncertainty with the modelling, and it actually states here that the model flood estimates could change if flood frequency inputs were updated with post-2008 data, although it's difficult to say with certainty whether this update would increase or decrease the design flood estimates. It just shows that there are clauses in this amendment which still show that there's uncertainty, and as a councillor I have to be wary that we're not actually allowing too many people but to be inundated in possibly increasing flood incidents in the future with climate changes. I make the point simply because I think that we need to be aware that while the amendment looks like it's the right direction, it doesn't actually allow us to say we're making everybody safe.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else like to speak? No? Okay. There being no other speakers, Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak before closing the debate?
Thank you, Mayor Charlie. I lived in North Wonneville overlooking the Merri River for 30 years, and during that period, I would say the Merri and the Russells Creek flood on an average every 6 years. But over the last 20 years, those floods haven't happened. So it'll be interesting to see in the future when we get another heavy downpour, just what's going to happen in relation to these floods. Thank you, Mayor Charlie.
Thank you. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.4, amended development plan, DP 2022-0004, 15 Dales Road. Agenda page number 34, Directorate Department City Growth. This report considers an amendment to the North East Warrnambool Growth Area Development Plan in relation to the Development Area D submitted specifically for 15 Dales Road, and recommends that Council endorse the amended development plan as submitted. Any questions with this? No, thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
I move that Council approve V2.2 of the Dales Road Development Plan as submitted on 20 July 2022.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Blaine, I'm sorry. Sorry, went to say Ben Blaine, Councillor Blaine, thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Jolly. The amendment to this development is the inclusion of a childcare centre, early years learning centre, which I think for that developing area can only be a positive outcome. Our waiting lists for childcare or for early learning childcare centres have grown astronomically over the last few years. I think there's about 300 children needing placement. So I think anything that can help alleviate that problem is really good. Along with that, I know that there's 15 two-storey townhouses and one single-storey townhouse which has been allocated for affordable housing. And although they are sited on smaller blocks, it's still only classed as medium density. I feel satisfied with the area set aside for a mix of ground cover vegetation and canopy trees within the internal common areas. So I feel this development is a major plus for our community. So I'm more than happy to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blaine.
Thank you. I think Councillor Arndt's hit on it pretty well. There's a need for more childcare in our city, and this is a change. If there's already a development plan there for it all to be residential housing, and I think it's an important change that there is actually a childcare centre there. As we see more growth and more housing and more population move out to Aberline Road, we're going to see more and more demand and need for these services, and there will be services located out there, but this is going to be an important service for those families who do move out there. I also think it's important too that as we have more social housing, more housing stock, it's going to be critical in order for our city to be able to continue to grow and prosper, especially when it comes to workers' housing, and it's exciting to see that there's some more social housing. Every little bit helps. Every little bit gives someone a home that doesn't have a home now. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. The intention of the original structure plan for this site was that the land was going to be intended for residential use only. But that structure plan dates back to 2008, and I would agree that the growing community's needs have certainly changed over that time. I do support the education use as an acknowledged but suitable departure from that structure plan. And I guess after now personally and genuinely realising the immense importance that childcare has on a parent's and particularly a mother's ability to work for independence and quality of life and for that of the community, I feel that if council can facilitate addressing the demonstrated need for childcare and early learning facilities, it can only be a good thing overall. I do have reservations about this application on the residential side of things, in that the North East Warrnambool structure plan has an overall density target of 15 dwellings per hectare. So with 16 dwellings on the approximate 4,700 square metres, the residential density calculation for this application sits at 34 dwellings per hectare, which concerns me. I'm also sceptical of only 1 out of 16 dwellings being proposed as affordable housing. Another concern I have is lack of open space in the residential part of the application, which has not been addressed yet. I do, however, acknowledge that if this development plan is approved, a future planning application would require council to have greater consideration to such matters raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, I'll endorse the comments of my colleague, Councillor Paspaliaris. The inclusion of childcare facilities in this development are most welcome, and we desperately need them. I have the same reservations that she's mentioned about the residential side of things, that I think basically that the medium density doesn't fit in with the structure plan. It's too many dwellings in that particular space. I think it's a bit of a trade-off, actually. I think that we're having to trade off one desirable aspect against an undesirable aspect, and I bemoan the fact that there's not enough open space in this particular development.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Koish.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do agree with some of my colleagues. As all of us we know, Warrnambool is in desperate need of early childhood services as well as accommodation. And rental properties is nowhere to be found in Warrnambool nowadays. So this project in particular is really very important, childcare and accommodation. So I support this project to see the light. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, there being no further speakers, Councillor Arnott, would you like to close?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jelly. I'll just reiterate my point that we do need more early childhood centres, childcare centres, and we do need residential housing, as my other colleagues have said. You know, this development, it has said it will provide 29 off-street car parking spaces and streetscaping improvement, footpath, pedestrian footpath, 8 public car parks on site. So I think it ticks a lot of boxes for us as a community, and in such a fast-growing area, we need to accept as much help as we can. So I'm all in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. 7 carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 7.5, Draft Albert Park Revegetation Plan, agenda page number 38, Directorate City Growth. This report outlines the Draft Albert Park Revegetation Plan and recommends that it is released for community consultation. Any questions before we go ahead? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what's your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. I'd like to move the motion to approve the release of the draft of the Albert Park Revegetation Plan for community consultation as per Officer's recommendation be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder motion? Councillor Arnott, thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Jolly. The Albert Park revegetation plans draws on existing strategies, frameworks and policies and assisting in achieving goals for a greener Warrnambool in 2040. This plan is to increase the biodiversity through the planting of native plant species and incorporate a range of local Indigenous species. I can remember as a child spending countless days and weekends in the huge cypress trees along Kramer and Colstock Streets and building great hut fortresses in the cypress trees and then falling down from them and going home with broken bones. So I don't think that would be accepted these days. So it's great to see to ensure the safety of the park users by maintaining passive surveillance and providing adequate clearance along the pathside network and no more safety issues. Thank you, Mayor Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Jolly. We have a wonderful park right in virtually the centre of our city. So I feel for the community, it's very important that we look after it as such and that we have a plan, strategic plan for planting, revegetation. It's a wonderful asset. Not many cities have such a park of that size that accommodates so many community facilities in that area. So it's a very important plan that, and I encourage community to have a say on it. So I'm all for letting it go out to community consultation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Arnott. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Blaine.
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. There's been considerable work done with the key stakeholders in this precinct as well to try and make sure that with this revegetation plan that it won't impact the activities that happen there. It's exciting to see that it's exciting, as Councillor Arnott and Councillor Taylor have said, to see that we are hoping to revegetate the Albert Park precinct. And I think it's important that when this goes out for consultation, if there are going to be issues, especially with the user groups, that they do speak up now so that we can make sure we get it right, not only for them but for all the users of the precinct. It is an exciting project that will be undertaken over the coming years, so it will take a while. Creating ecosystems and improving the amenity of the oval, you know, that's what we're really trying to do here without impacting any of the community groups. So get online and have your say. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blaine. Anyone else? Councillor Ziegler.
Yes, as with any project that council undertakes, which involves revegetating and extra plantings, I'm all in favour. The one caution I'd like to, or piece of advice I'd like to make, is that we look particularly closely at planting local Indigenous species rather than some of the species that are on the list, but I dare say those people who are interested in the public consultation phase will make that point as well. I certainly hope so.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else? Councillor Paspaliaris.
Thank you, Mayor. I too am pleased to support the draft plan going out for public comment. And as Councillor Blaine mentioned, it has been developed already between council staff and key stakeholders. Because it's such a large, well-utilised precinct, I really hope that the people that use it regularly will ensure that they give as much feedback as possible in order to really help shape and refine the final plan. And in particular, regarding the safety of park users, which is one of the objectives noted, I think you can plan as much as you like as to where things may feel or seem safe on paper, but if you're actually asking the people that use it, I feel like you've got a much better informed picture of things. So yeah, happy to support this going out.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this? Thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to close the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Okay, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.6, Middle Island Season Report 2021 to 22, agenda page number 43, Directorate City Growth. The purpose of this report is to provide an annual update to Council on the implementation of the Middle Island project. Any questions? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Taylor, what is your motion?
I'd like to move that the motion to receive the Middle Island Project's season report of 2021-22 be accepted. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor Jelly. The ongoing implications of COVID-19 pandemic combined with the difficulty of crossing to Middle Island to monitor the penguin population and activity has been difficult over the past few years. The Marima dog protection of the penguin colony continues to prove successful, keeping the foxes away from the island, and is so important to continue to guide conservation efforts into the future. Thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Paspaliaris?
Thank you, Mayor. There's obviously in the agenda there are a series of project highlights and also project challenges for the 21-22 season. I am ignorant to say that I was unaware that scenting of the beach and on the island is undertaken with the dogs when it is unsafe to leave the dogs on the island or to access the island. It is generally unsafe to cross during winter, thus scenting occurs at the beach at Stingray Bay regularly, and during breeding season it is completed daily if the dogs cannot remain on the island. This is to ensure the scent of the dogs remains in the area to keep the foxes away. So I found that particularly interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to speak to it? Thank you. No. So Councillor Taylor, being no further speakers, would you like to close?
No, thank you, Mayor Jelly.
Okay, now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.7, Award of Contract 2022-026, Register of Contractors Supporting Civil Infrastructure. Agenda page number 46, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report provides information on the award of contract 2020-026, Register of Contractors Supporting Civil Infrastructure. Any questions? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Paspaliaris, what is your motion?
I move that Council 1 award contract number 2020-0026, Register of Contractors Supporting Civil Infrastructure to the tenderers in the list attached to the councillor briefing report under an individual deed of standing offer for their nominated separable portion of work, and 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign, seal and vary the deed of standing offer as required.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler, thank you. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Yes, Mayor, only to say that this was completed by public tender, and pleased to see that the panel contract is largely local suppliers and contractors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ziegler? No? Anyone else like to speak to it? Okay. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to comment on closing?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We'll now put the motion to the vote. Everybody in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 7.8, Small Infrastructure Fund Projects. Agenda page number 49, Directorate City Infrastructure. This report is provided to inform councillors and seek approval for the provision of funds to several community groups under the Small Infrastructure Fund. Any questions with this one? Thank you. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blaine, what is your motion?
I move the council allocate $45,000 from the Small Infrastructure Fund to the Dennington Bowls Club to enable the construction of a shelter over a new barbecue area and light the car park area at the club. 2, that council allocate $39,000 to the Warrnambool Dog Training Club as a contribution towards the construction of a storage facility at the Harris Street Reserve site.
Thanks, Councillor Blain. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Paspaliaris, thank you. Councillor Blain, would you like to speak?
I think that both these projects are exciting, to see the bowling club have a shelter for their barbecue and lights, especially going out into the car park at night for the safety of all the patrons and players. I think it's a really, it's a really positive step forward to make the facility safer for everyone. So I think that's exciting. And a new dog shed for the Warrnambool Dog Training Club's it's going to be a huge plus for that area and the dog park. One thing I would like to point out about the Small Infrastructure Fund is on the back of the Vargo report, we're reviewing the guidelines of the fund so that it actually has some more guidelines and falls in line with the expectations from Vargo and other grants programs, so that this one will be a little bit more structured as we move forward. So I think that's a positive step too, for the sake of transparency, so everyone understands, what we're looking for in order to be able to fund projects out of this fund. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Blain. Councillor Paspaliaris, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I think with the dog training club, it's excellent to see the site improved as part of a broader multi-use precinct on Harris Street, and I think it will certainly add to the amenities of this area, specifically for the dog training club. I am happy to also see some financial contribution and in-kind contribution from the club itself. As far as the Dennington Bowls Club is concerned, I absolutely agree with their application where they note that 90 plus homes were constructed in the Dennington area last year, which obviously indicates considerable growth for that side of town and the increased need for community facilities nearby. It's really great that they have an ambition for the club to be more of a community gathering point for Dennington rather than just the single use as a bowls club, because just looking at the list there, they are also able to provide an array of activities, which I think is excellent for their local community. And this project of theirs forms a component in a 4-year master plan for the club. So I'm really pleased with this overarching strategic focus that they've got for their club and how it's guiding the development and improvement of their venue as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Paspaliaris. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Ziegler?
Yes, I'd like to just speak glowingly about these two projects. They're both good examples of council's capacity to enrich existing organisations, and as Councillor Paspaliaris has mentioned, the Dennington Bowls Club is making efforts to become more of a community-focused facility, and the dog club has been particularly active over many years at the Harris Street Reserve, and I think it's marvellous that they've been able to be successful in getting some extra money towards the construction of their storage facility. These are both examples of rich community activities, and I'm happy that Council supports them.
Thanks, Councillor Ziegler. Anyone else? Thank you. Councillor Blain, would you like to close the debate?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 7.9, Advisory Committee Reports, agenda page number 52, Directorate, City Growth and City Infrastructure. The report contains the record of 3 advisory committee meetings and 1 reference group meeting. Any questions, councillors, about these meetings? Thank you. Do I have a motion for this? Councillor Arnott, what is your motion?
I move that the records of the Community and International Relations Advisory Committee held On 2nd of August 2022, the Planning Advisory Committee held on 9th of August 2022, the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee held on 12th of August 2022, and the Warrnambool Regional Airport Reference Group meeting held on the 15th of August 2022 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Blain, thank you. Councillor Arnott, would you like to speak?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Blain.
No, thank you.
Any other councillors like to speak to this? Thank you. Councillor Arnott, you'd like to close?
No, thank you. All done.
Thank you. We'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay, 7.10, informal meetings of council reports, agenda page number 53, Directorate Executive Services. The purpose of this report is to provide council with copies of informal meetings of council previously known as Assembly of Councillor Records, as previously required under section 80A2 of the Local Government Act 1989. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Blain, what is your motion?
I move that the record for informal meetings of council held on the 8th, 15th, 22nd and 29th of August 2022 be received.
Thanks, Councillor Blain. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ziegler. Councillor Blain, would you like to speak to this?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Ziegler.
No, thank you.
Any other councillor like to speak to it? Thank you. We'll now put the motion to, Councillor Blain, would you like to say anything? Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Agenda item 7.11, Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Activities Summary Report, agenda page number 54, Directorate Executive Services. This report summarises Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council activities since the last ordinary meeting, which particularly relate to key social, economic and environmental issues of direct relevance to the Warrnambool community. Any questions, councillors? Thank you. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Ziegler, what is your motion?
Thanks, Mayor. I move that the Mayoral and Chief Executive Officer Council Activities Summary Report be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arnott. Councillor Ziegler, do you want to speak to that?
No, thank you.
Councillor Arnott.
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Councillor Ziegler, want to close? No. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Okay. That ends the reports. Agenda item number 8 is notice of no motion. There's no notice of motion have been received. We'll go to agenda item 9, general business. Only items of a minor nature or routine nature can be raised at general business. The chair may reject them if they're not a minor or routine nature or that meets any of the reasons listed in clause 29(2) of the governance rules. Councillor may speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. Mine councillors, they will be provided with any opportunity if there's any questions to response or address any issues raised by officers. Any items of general business tonight? Thank you. No items. And agenda item 10, urgent business. CEO, have we received any notice of items of urgent business?
There's none lodged, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Okay. We now move to agenda item 11, which is the closed section of the meeting, and there are confidential items for consideration tonight. Can I have a councillor move a motion to close the meeting to the public? Thank you, Councillor Blain. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Paspaliaris. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Can I please ask those in the gallery now depart the meeting, and can the live streaming please be turned off?